I started building scale models when I was a kid with my grandfather, and what was a simple hobby for me turned into something much bigger later on in my life. And quite frankly, I think that nowadays the art of scale model building has been lost. So let's go back in time for a quick story time. This was around the early 2000s when my grandfather and I built the first scale model together. And we built this simple MD-80 McDonnell Douglas 80 airplane together. I remember it had 3 engines. It was really simple. We glued it with some, I guess, styrene glue, and then we painted it. I remember we got our thumbs in it. It was really basic. We did the decals, and yeah, that was my introduction into scale models and model kits. So my grandfather really, it was his idea to get into that, to start it as something we did one summer. I loved it so much, and we eventually did more and more of these together. My grandfather, I'll talk about him for a minute. He was a major influence in my life, and he, in the 60s and 70s, way before I was born, he was into control line airplanes and building them and flying them in these competitions. And what it is when you have this model airplane with a working engine, and you have it on this long line, maybe 20-30 feet. You stand with the end of the line, and then the airplane is on the other end, and it goes with its engine, and you spin circles. He was in lots of competitions. Actually, in the house where I live with my grandparents, he had lots of these old trophies stored away from back in those days when he did it with my uncle. But he had a lot of knowledge of building things. He built things out of balsa wood and knew how to build the wings and engines and working engines, and how the wing had to be formed and how to work with balsa wood. Also, I'll mention, I also built these working little model propeller airplanes that I would fly just for fun in the backyard. But yeah, that's how I really got into it. The person that influenced me for model building was my grandfather. So another influence, you might say, was my years living in Ecuador. And along this time, whenever I was in the States, I would buy die-cast models, and these were made of metal, and they were like of different airlines. And so I would buy them, take them back. What I would do is I learned how to do paper mache, and I built out of paper mache, which is water with flour and like newspaper cut into strips. I would cast or make a model, I guess, out of the die-cast models. And I wish I had I don't know if I have one around somewhere, but and so I would have these very simple rudimentary airplanes made out of paper mache, and I would paint them according to the airline, and that was fun. I did that for a while, and I remember I made the wheels of the airplane out of the pieces of erasers from a pencil. I would cut the eraser off and stick it on the bottom of the airplane, and thereby make the wheels. So then going into 2008, I continued doing models. I was back in the States, and I got into some railroad building models with like HO, I think it was HO model, a little railroad model train. And I would buy some model buildings from the store or online, and then I would also build my own out of boxes, and I would paint them like local stores in my area and add them in addition to the models I bought online or scale models. So I did that. I remember I had it on my grandparents' table in their dining room. Moving on along into my high school years in the 2010s, so I got into Star Trek. I was a big Star Trek nerd, and I watched all the Next Generation, so the movies, of course. I never got into the original series, but I built the models, the Enterprise 1701D, and then I really went heavy into building the Enterprise 1701A refit, Polar Lights refit. I watched a lot of YouTube videos that existed at the time of how to build models. I found a model builder in Florida on YouTube. His name is Simon Merks. He still has a YouTube channel, and he was really a professional model builder from the movie times when he built movies, I believe, for some of the studios in California. But I watched a lot of his videos, learned about painting, airbrushing, also the lighting. I used a lot of his guides for the lighting of the model. He would put little lights inside the models, and it was just overall a great learning experience. I met him actually in person. I went to his house and got a tour of his studio. It was a great experience. One of the things I struggle with, and I'll admit this, is I struggled with airbrushing. I never really got good at it. I was terrible, I'll say that much. I did this one Dreamliner, the airplane Boeing Dreamliner 787, and this would have been back in 2010 or so, and my grandfather and I wanted to paint it like the original model of the Dreamliner that was kind of the first one built, and it had white on the top of the airplane and blue and turquoise. So I remember we used all this tape to make the pattern, and we used an airbrush and really fought with it. And even going further on, I never really got good at airbrushing. I always had trouble with the paint, or the typical thing with airbrushing, that the brush, or sorry, the little nozzle gets stopped up. So that was hard. But it was something I still wish I could go back, and maybe I will go back one day and learn how to do that better. We'll see how that goes. But a lot of this was learning through trial and error. And I failed a lot, but I also learned a lot, and I was eventually successful in different ways. Going now into my late high school years, I had to do this, what was called a senior project, and I'll do a video about this in the future. But I had to do a project in my senior year of high school. I had to build a model. That was my project. Design it and then build it. I did one of what my future school would look like, because at that time my school didn't have an actual building. So I designed the floor plan and the parking lot and everything, and then built a model. And my grandfather kind of mentored me and helped me figure out all the complexities of that, because he had been an architect in his working years. That was really an amazing experience, something I treasure down to today, building that scale model. So along going into 2013, 2014, around 2014, I kind of started to move away from model building. I haven't built one in many years. I don't really keep up with the world of model building nowadays. I know that in some movies, TV shows, they still use it to a degree, integrated with special effects, like in ILM for Star Wars and other movies. I know they use it still, and I think that's really adds something tangible and makes the movie or show be more real in a way. And I think that's beautiful, that art that is implemented along with the computer side of it, if you will. But yeah, I moved away from model building. I focused more on my painting side of it, and painting, drawing. Several years ago, I said I want to do something more in addition to my painting. That's something I can do, not on the computer. And so I said, do I want to do model building scale models, or do I want to do maybe a reef aquarium? Because I thought for a long time wanted to do that. And I said to myself, I want to do something with life, with like real life to it. And that's why I chose the little reef tank as a starting point. So I think a lot of the model building has like fallen out of popularity nowadays. I mean, maybe people still do as a hobby, but I think that there's less of a demand for models, and overall, I don't really know of anybody that does that as a hobby. Scale model building, that art that can really go deep, not just doing something together, but with all these complex things to it, has kind of gone on the back burner. And I know that there are places and museums and places like Miniature Wonderland in Germany that has their massive scale model of the world. If you haven't seen that already, go on YouTube or wherever and look that up. It's an amazing scale model with moving cars and all that. And I think that building scale models isn't just something that, oh, I'm going to build a simple model, but it teaches valuable skills, things that you can then implement into your life, like measuring or calculating something, or doing problem solving. A lot of these skills are very valuable in life and in the workplace even today. So scale model building shaped my creativity. Scale model building shaped my creativity. And even if I don't do it or build models, nowadays the skills and things I learned back then stayed with me. And this art of building models is worth preserving. So thank you for watching. Have a great day. Talk to you in the next one. Bye.